Where is the beginning? You might need to unmute if you got some answers to this. Where is the beginning of your digestive system?
Your mouth.
The mouth? No one's going to improve on that answer, I suppose.
Oh, how
The
about
smell.
smell? Yes.
The smell? Ooh.
Taste, the tongue.
The
Your eyes.
taste, the tongue. What's that, Doug?
Eyes.
The eyes.
Eating the food.
Mm.
Yeah, things start rumbling.
Let me ask a follow-up question. Where does the food that you eat come from?
Oh, the land.
From the land?
See?
From the sea?
In the air.
I ate from both of those yesterday. From the sky? I see a finger in the air. Yeah? Yeah? I'm pretty fond of writers who speak of our digestive system as expansive, as a circular experience of our bodies, which has to do with the world around us. And that picture of the digestive system, it doesn't match up with the colorful cutaway pictures in anatomy textbooks, which are so, they always really drew me in as a child. The expansive picture of our digestive system is not something I can grasp as well. I can't sound so smart by talking about the tongue and the uvula and my duodenum. And I don't sound so well informed when I imagine that the system goes out into the whole world beyond me. But that expansive picture of our digestive system is just as true, just a lot harder to grasp. To my spirit, at least, it also, it calls me into a more expansive care for and relationship with the world, if I imagine my digestive system in that way. So another question, where is the beginning of your worship?
In your heart.
Yeah.
In your heart,
With God.
with God.
I don't see any beginning. Seems as if it's just continuous.
No, don't see any beginning. It seems as if it's just continual.
Your soul. It's all around us.
It's all around us.
With your ears and listening.
With your ears and listening. The scriptures are with you. There's a Psalm 19, it says, the heavens declare the glory of God, which is a sort of no beginning kind of statement. And Jesus says in Luke's gospel, if we were silent, these rocks would cry out. So it is all around, says the scriptures. And in today's gospel, there is actually an intersection of our expansive worship system, the flow of worship through our lives, and our expansive digestive systems. As this crowd of thousands sits down on the mountainside, Jesus prods his disciples and he says, where are we to buy bread for these people to eat? But then he takes hold of 5 loaves of bread and 2 fishes and worships God through them, gives thanks for them, worships God through them, and feeds everyone. Which makes no sense. Sometimes when scripture makes no sense, you can open your study Bible and you can look at the footnotes and it will say, verse 23. Oh, why is Jesus talking about people burying money in the ground? Oh, in antiquity, burying money was one of the safest places to keep it. Oh, good, now it makes sense. The feeding of the 5,000, you will open your study Bible and you will look to the footnotes and there will be a hole, because the footnotes cannot explain the beyond sense-ness of the feeding of the 5,000. This isn't a cultural misunderstanding. It's not a textual misunderstanding. If I am confused by this event, it is a delighting, confounding misunderstanding between the way of the world and the way of God. The only leads, well, the ones that I saw, the leads that I saw in this text that we have to go on for what happened here are the desire of the crowd, come out ready to see what Jesus will do in their lives. Jesus's trust. He seems to see this entire experience with a smile on his face. The sharing from a boy with some food. And Jesus's thanksgiving to God, his worship of God in the food. Where do you think that enough food came from to feed all these people?
I always felt that the boys' generosity, I think if 5,000 people came to see something, that somebody would have something in their pocket. And I always felt that the showing of the generosity and the blessing of that pulled open people to give out what they had, even if it was the last of what they had. So that act of giving the 5 fishes became the impetus for the whole crowd to have enough to eat.
Thanks, Pam. Others? One of the children in the art camp said, "From God," and they kind of left it there, which you can take many ways. Somehow I see that Jesus made contact with the abundance of the land and the people in that place. Somehow Jesus accessed a larger digestive and worship system than I can claim to understand. I think I would have been standing there with Philip saying, "You couldn't feed these people with 6 months' wages." But if I can't understand this, maybe I can practice it. So I'm going to invite you all now to an expansive act of worship connecting beyond, that calls for our own desire, that we must bring our own desire, calls us to receive the trust from beyond us, a trust of ourselves by what is beyond us, that calls for our own sharing and our own thanksgiving. But in order to practice this act of expansive worship, we're going to need to travel a little. So we're going to try something here. Randy, are you seeing this other screen to switch to here? We're gonna go mobile here. I'm gonna start on the journey, and I think you're gonna be joining me in just a second. How do you sign in? Reed Loy. I think it's signed in as Reed Loy. There's probably another Reed Loy hiding in there. There is. Okay, so I'm going to start walking. Okay, here we go. It is raining here, so good job us. changing our worship format today. We're out front of the church. And yeah, here we are on Main Street. You can see here a mighty maple tree.
Oh, coming down.
And yeah, this tree, like most of creation that I have known, has no special name, actually, but it certainly has a presence. And if you could bring up that picture. Over 100 at the pictures to know quite when they were taken. But here is the beginning of this tree's life with us. Do you see it there in the mid? It's the middle of the trees, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be. It could actually be one over. It could be the tree on the right there, the littlest tree. So this tree is absolutely 100 years old, and maybe a good bit older than that. You and I, thanks, Randy. This number of days are unknown. And like you and I, if this tree's number of days ends suddenly, it will cause a great disruption. Unlike you and I, if this tree falls unexpectedly, it will either crush our church or take down power lines. And so our custom around here is to be thoughtful and to be shepherding of the days of a tree, and to take an active role in the ending of a tree in certain places. And on
You're frozen.
maybe most often that kind of act passes unremarked. The only sign of the coming worldly end of this tree right here is a piece of plastic tape tied around it that's orange. And maybe most often the aftermath of such a felling is simply absence. But what if we come out to this grassy place with crowd in Galilee? What if we allow ourselves to perceive in this tree itself a trust akin to the trust that Jesus showed long choice, but no need of a choice, a trust that this tree has simply extends to the space around it. What if we do something of ourselves here to share, like the boy who shared the bread and the fish? And oh, I'm breaking up a bit. Randy is informing me that maybe the Wi-Fi doesn't like going through stone walls. And what if we include here in this space our worship of God? What if we bring this into our worship? To be pretty blunt, I think that's a lot to ask, because I'm standing out here in the rain next to a tree by the road with tape around it, and we tend to just pass right by this. But I wonder whether if we make that expansive commitment of our worship to this moment, we might receive something more than an aftermath of absence. Maybe we could be fed here. So I'm encouraged in this by our patron saint, St. Andrew, who said in the gospel today,
essentially, Jesus, I don't really have any idea what you're planning for this moment, but there is a boy over here with 5 loaves of bread. I have no idea how that's going to help, but I'm willing to point to something I recognize as helpful on the way. And if the culture that I grew up in did not teach me how to bless a tree for felling, surely it did teach me something I can bring here. So I very much encourage you in the coming weeks to bring what you know how to bring to this tree and to this space in worship. Today, I'm going to draw on some of our sacramental wisdom, the wisdom that we practice in our usual worship, to bring a blessing upon this tree. So first, in our regular worship, we remember. We remember what Jesus did. We remember the lives of the saints. And so we can remember this tree's gifts to us rooted in this place. We can remember that it has shaded us for 5, 6 generations. We can remember that it performs a role in the earth of returning oxygen to our lungs after we have made carbon dioxide into this atmosphere. We can remember that it has gifts still to give in warmth from its wood being burned, in being a site of nutrients going back into the soil. We can remember that this tree has actually been our most faithful member for the last 120 years. It hasn't missed a Sunday. And that's impressive. I mean, Ann Sims turned 100 this week. That's impressive. This tree has gone even longer. And we can do a couple things also that we always do in our worship as well. We can exercise touch. So I'm going to gather some water here, which is very easy right now, and bless it. Holy God, by this water, we recognize the cycles of your world, that we are bound into them, and that you have been binding us into these cycles since you brought us out of the waters of creation, since you brought us through the waters of the Red Sea, and since you consecrated us for baptism in the waters of the Jordan by the baptism of Jesus. And so we take this water and we touch this tree. Because we do not fear to touch that which passes beyond our knowledge and into your hands. We bless this tree for where it is headed, the whole world. God wants you always to gather up the broken pieces so that nothing will be lost. And we can also do something that we say we do every week here, practice resurrection. We can anticipate the resurrection of this tree by understanding its death to be a holy thing. And so I know that those who cut down trees are looking for orange ribbons. I'll have to find another way to communicate that. But this tree that's been with us for 120 years is not going to end its life with us with a piece of orange plastic tied around itself. I have a ribbon with greater dignity to honor this tree. We have a practice of blessing in this great church. And so I have a prayer prepared. And this prayer is written on this paper, which I'm going to place into this tree. Amen.
Amen.
Are we back to this one? Amen.